Hi, I'm Karen,
I'm Sarah.
and welcome to week one of the Start with Questions book club. Start with Questions is a collection of stories of how teachers support their students' curiosity and self-direction. There are 40 of these stories in the book, and each is paired with the writing of an educator, researcher, and philosopher, Maria Montessori, Seymour Papert, bell hooks, Paulo Freire, and others who help us see and appreciate the beautiful work in these classrooms. And I think we hope that these stories can serve as both inspiration and affirmation, whether these ideas are new to you or whether you've already been doing this work in your classroom. And so for 5 Fridays in May, we'll post a video like this one. In each video, we'll spend some time with one story from the book and connect it to something from our own teaching. And we'd love for you to read along with us. After you watch, join us on Substack, pick an excerpt that resonated with you, and share a connection to your own life or practice. And we're hoping that the comments can be a space for conversation, a space for us to learn from and with each other. So for our inaugural book club session, we're starting from the beginning with the first story. What are you interested in? So Sarah, what is this story and who is our theorist?
So this story is a window into the classroom of Kelly, who is a STEAM lab educator, and it focuses especially on her work with a group of first graders who she has structured a passion project for them, where each of them get to pick a topic that interests them, that means something to them, and then pursue an extended research project about that topic, which they then create both a physical artifact that represents the project and a digital artifact that represents the project and their ideas and what they found. And in this particular essay, Kelly talks about the ways that her thinking about teaching, that her thinking about her interactions with the students are informed by the work of Italian educator and philosopher Maria Montessori. And one of the things that's unusual about this essay that's going to be different from the other essays that we look at is that it was Kelly who said, this is a theorist that I'm thinking about, and this is ways that I'm thinking about her work in terms of my own work. We were not the ones who chose it. She chose it. And she talks about the ideas from Montessori, especially things around taking learners and their ideas seriously, believing in very young people as people with something to say, and the way that that informs Kelly's thinking about her own role as a teacher, about where she does and does not intervene with students, how she talks to them and interacts with them around that intervention, and helps them be able to express these incredible things that they have to express.
Ugh. So what was a specific excerpt that spoke to you and how did it relate to
Yeah.
your teaching?
Yeah. So I was especially struck on this read by something that Kelly says, where she says, when she's talking about like the ways that she talks to students about their ideas, and she talks about one of the struggles that she has as a teacher is kind of holding back a little bit and not jumping in. And she says, the minute I push in with my, well, how about this way, I devalue what they're doing.
Ugh.
And I I think in some sense, like the essay shows that she's able to offer supports in ways that totally validate and affirm the learner's ideas and don't get in the way of them. But it prompted me to just think a lot about the ways that I interact with students around their work and the ways that I talk to them about their work. And I think I was conscious, like I teach fourth grade. I'm doing pretty conventional curriculum. Like, we are not doing these extended, phenomenal, like passion projects full of students like research and own ideas. And I was conscious that in certain ways of talking about teaching that I do not agree with all of them, sort of one of the primary responsibilities as a teacher is to like give students what is sometimes called like corrective feedback, where you're like telling them like this isn't right, or like this isn't what you're doing wrong. There's like, I feel complicated about that, but I do think part of my role as teacher is to support them in their understanding. And when I notice sites of confusion, when I notice sites of misunderstanding, that is a place that I want to speak to them and talk to them and check in with them. That's like part of my responsibility for helping them learn and grow. but I was especially conscious, maybe because I have a few students this year who just like that form of feedback is so hard for them. It is
Mm,
stressful. It is anxiety provoking. It is to
yeah.
be avoided at all costs. And I,
By them, by you. Yes, and.
it prompted me to start to think about sort of like what it would mean to, if I'm trying to do this thing that Kelly's describing of like offering support, offering feedback, but like for them in the service of their growth,
Mm,
what it would mean if I tried to like more explicitly ask for consent to do that, ask for their consent
oh,
to offer them that sort of feedback rather than to just like jump
mm,
in with it, which I feel like again as teachers, like we're like, okay, like I'm going to tell you this needs to be fixed, and we're
yeah.
good. Like what it would look like to just kind of to more explicitly ask for their consent, and which means that they get to say no, that they get to be like, no, like I might to be
Thank
like,
you, but no.
yeah, no, not right now. And I think when the
Oh,
answer is no, I try to say like, thank you so much for letting me know. This is important. Is there like another time when we could come back to it? And
oh,
usually the answer to that is actually yes. And I think
ooh,
the like, but I was thinking about like noticing in students in those moments where they're not open to it, where it's only functioning as shaming and critical, even when that's not how I mean it, I
yeah.
can see in their like I can see in their eyes them going away and not being available to the conversation about the intellectual content, which is like what I want to have. And I can see them go away. And so I started, and I think in the past, sometimes like in those moments where I would see them go away, I would like keep going, it's sort of like feel like I gotta press through. I gotta make sure that I like tell you this thing about, fractions or whatever it was that we were talking about. And I tried to stop. I've been trying to like to ask for consent. And then if I notice that they're not there, that they're, even if they gave nominal consent, that they're not actually like
Mm,
available to that conversation emotionally or intellectually, to stop
yeah.
and just say like, I noticed that this is not working. I would really love to talk to you about like your understanding of mixed numbers. Like, there's nothing I want to do more than talk to you about your understanding of mixed numbers, but like, let's find another time to do it. So I think like the way that Kelly talked about that, and it's so grounded in these beautiful things that she cites from Montessori about how Montessori is just like these young people, these very young people have ideas about things. Like that is what is at the center of it, is like they have ideas about things. And that's true even in these situations where it's about this more conventional content. And if I'm not
Mm,
open to and engaged with their thinking about it, and I'm just trying to give that feedback, that is to the detriment of learning. That is to the detriment of like our relationship. So those are
mm,
things I've been trying to do around that, like that tension between their ideas and then what I'm trying to offer to make it a genuine offer. And I think sometimes in the past it wasn't a genuine offer. It was like, I'm just like giving it, I'm throwing it
yeah.
out.
What makes it possible for kids to say no to
Yeah.
you?
I mean, so I think that's a great question because I'm sure that some of them don't actually think that they can say no. I think
Mm,
that there are probably some folks who like, we have been so acculturated by the traditional power dynamics between teacher and student that they probably don't think they can say no. Um, Again, there were like a few people who were the folks especially resistant to this, who when I asked the question and I said, you get to say no in this moment, there was so much relief. Like they were just like I have one student who will frequently say no, but he will like say it with a smile. He'll just be like, no. I'm like,
oh.
great, great. I'm so glad that we got that out there. And then we can come back to it another time. Um, so yeah, I think that some people like were dying to say no, and then putting out the idea that you could say no was just like a huge relief. I think some people probably think they don't have permission to say no, even though I'm saying that they do.
Mm,
Um, I think I try to like say I really mean it. Like I really mean it. And then also to stop, to be like, I'm gonna stop. Like when I see them, even if they've consented, go away,
Yeah.
I don't want to do, this is not what I want to do. I want to really talk to you about it, where I like hear what you're thinking and we like have an engagement and interaction. So I'm going to stop this like empty performance that is hurting everyone and helping no one. I'm going to
Yeah.
stop it. And instead of like continuing on.
Mm.
What?
I imagine that some of that is about the evolving relationship over the year, that when you first meet them, they don't know you yet,
Yeah.
and they don't know that they can trust you
Yeah.
with that beautiful offer that you're extending. Hmm.
Yeah. I think one of the things that Kelly's calling attention to here that's so important is like the way in which we communicate as teachers our own ideas, the implications of that for students' ideas and for their thinking about themselves as people with ideas. I think that like that's something she's really thinking about and wrestling with, and I think comes to slightly different conclusions than Maria Montessori herself.
Yeah.
And it's like it comes to a slightly more nuanced conclusion that there's a way to do it that's like supportive. And so Montessori has like a very hard line, like never.
Suffocating.
Yeah, no, you see
Suffocating.
life itself. That's
Yeah,
like,
right.
like yeah,
Not
so
at all dramatic.
but I so appreciate the prompt to think more about it. And it's felt better, like to ask for consent, to accept no, to not push on when it's not real. Like
Yeah.
it feels so much better to me. I think it feels better to that. Like it feels the sense is more relief than anxiety.
Yeah.
Um, and then it gives space for them to initiate a conversation, or just to like, we're going to wait to do it till you're open to it, but I am kind of going to keep asking you. Like, I'm not going to let it
I'll
go.
be back.
We're
Yeah.
going to like, yeah, we're like forgetting. This is not a like, forget about it.
Yeah.
But then it gives them space. If they have to be the person who's willing to have the conversation, I think it does seem to make them more like open to the conversation when it really happens.
It's such an expression of that core idea of taking learners seriously, right? And this is about taking them seriously about their ideas about themselves
Yeah.
and what they need and what they're ready for at a given time. What a gift. That's so beautiful.
What were parts that resonated especially with you and your own work?
I flagged it. I marked it up. So this is page 34, the final paragraph of that page.
Mhm.
So it's sort of the middle of the paragraph. It's about time.
Mm.
The use of sustained, uninterrupted time in the learning environment, reflecting patience on the part of both learner and teacher, is one of the defining characteristics of a Montessori classroom. So I'm not so interested in the Montessori classroom bit, although that's obviously salient, given
Yeah.
our theorist. But the relationship between time and patience.
Mm.
I'm currently teaching, I guess this was our last class today,
Mhm.
of a class I'm teaching at HGSC, designing K-12 computer science learning experiences. And students have been working on 13-week passion projects.
Mhm.
And today was the final day. Every student had 3 minutes to get up and share some encapsulated thoughts about their projects, what their project was, what they were most proud of, what they learned from the process. And one of our wonderful students, it's a small class, it's like 20 people, um, got up, and as preamble, she noted, in relation to midterm presentations would happen around like week 6 or 7. She's like, you won't recognize this project because I didn't have a project then. And she said it like very playfully and like in such a beautiful way, but it was true. Like it took her some time to figure out what she wanted to do.
Yeah.
And actually connected to the beautiful excerpt you selected, I there were definitely moments where I was worried, I was anxious. I'm like, is she okay? Like, how involved do I need to be in sort of like shepherding her towards a project? And
Yeah.
I really leaned into patience in a profound way. And it, it's such a cliche, but I really do profoundly believe in sort of trusting the process. But I was like, with enough questions, with enough interactions with others, with enough pointers to resources as she invites them, it will come together. And it's one of the most spectacular projects in the course, and just needed a little more runway to sort of figure it out. And it's clearly going to have a life beyond the class, which is also so beautiful. But it was such a powerful reminder of, especially in classes which have a particular architecture and a sense of sequence and pacing and who's doing what
Yeah.
when, that not everyone's going to operate on that same timeline. So give everyone the time they need to work on what they want to work on, and like create a sense of space and patience for learners themselves, but also for you. It's
Yeah.
like it's hard to feel like, am I doing enough? Could I be doing more? Because I like, my big anxiety is always like, I never want a learner to feel like they're being abandoned on this like
Yeah.
island of no ideas. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like it will happen, it will come. But that was a really beautiful moment to hear her sort of like playfully point back to this moment where, like, yeah, it just took a little more time,
Yeah.
but like, so worth the wait, so worth the patience.
How do you feel like you communicate to students? Because I could imagine like students like at the college level having a hard time with like you're not going to know what you're going to do right away. It's going to take
Yeah.
you a long time to figure it out. It's not necessarily going to work right away. And that like the giving of time is like it's an act of trust in them, in their ideas. It is like communicating that, but I also can imagine like that not always being interpreted as such. And like what you say more about, like what are the things you do to communicate to students like you're gonna be okay. Like I'm gonna give you this time and it's gonna be all right.
Yeah. Some of it is through very intentional scaffolding. So there's more support and structure in the beginning weeks. Like, okay, this week you're going to generate 3 different project ideas. This week you're going to go talk to someone about those ideas and get feedback. But as the weeks pass, sort of the scaffolds fade. And our sort of first co-working session, which the class is very much ultimately defined by a lot of time to like be in the space together and work, our first co-working session is like 30 minutes. Our
Mhm.
penultimate class was 3 hours of co-working. I don't think anyone talked
Yeah.
to each other. We were just all in the room together. We had some like ambient jams on in the background. We had snacks in the space. Like, I don't think there were some people I don't think like got up for the 3 hours. They were just so hyper focused, but you couldn't start there.
Yeah.
So I think, as with all things, practice,
Mhm.
and you don't need the time in the same way necessarily in the beginning
Mhm.
as you do at the end. So just recognizing that time serves different purposes at
Mhm.
different points in the creative process. And again, trying to make sure that there's enough flexibility and support that, given everyone is not going
Yeah.
to be in the same place exactly in the same way at the same time, that people can find ways of making good use of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So scaffolding, I guess, is the short answer.
Absolutely. Can you think of ways like given that you don't, as you expressed, like you don't want to over intervene, you don't want to push in because of that, like worry about clouding out their ideas.
Yeah.
Can you think of times when like you were prompted to offer support? And like what was it in response to and how did you do it? Like as they're doing these individualized personal projects.
Mm. Well, I tried to signal a lot that I am here, I am around. That's office hours, that's on Slack, that's via
Yeah.
email. Something I did slightly differently this term that I hadn't done previous years was to require a meeting with every student in the first half of the course. So I meet with every single student at the end of the term just to
Mhm.
have a conversation. As you know, we've done these
Yeah.
meetings together, sort of
Yeah.
like, what did you do? How did it feel? Um, but I think I really appreciated requiring them at the beginning as well, because it just sets a tone of like,
Yeah.
well, you have no excuse not to come see me. You
Yeah.
know where my office is. We've already had a conversation. We've ripped that
Yeah.
Band-Aid off. So part of it is just signaling that Like, I don't wanna push in, I wanna be drawn in.
I feel like as this essay highlights it's just an ongoing tension to be navigated constantly and continually about, like, how much intervention and when and how and, like, to
Eh,
not to not overwhelm. I loved the language that you used of wanting to be drawn in rather than push in. Have you ever said that directly to students?
I don't think so.
I think it's, like, a very I just think it's very
No,
powerful. I think it's
no,
very powerful because I think, like, yeah, it's sort of naming what it is that you don't wanna do and how that's gonna inform, like, the way that you're interacting with them, but then naming what it is that you really do want. You want them to be like, "Oh, man, like, there's this thing I'm trying to figure out, and I can't figure out how to do it," or, like, "I'm just really not sure how to move forward here. Can I talk through my thinking with you?" Like, all of
yeah.
those ways in which it's so valuable to have you as someone to talk about, to talk through their ideas with. Yeah, no, I just love that language.
Anything else that's lingering with us from this beautiful first story?
Beautiful. I think those were the things that were especially present to me upon on this read.
Yeah. Ugh, I think that's it for week 1 of the book club.
I'm very excited for
Yeah.
what will happen next
Yeah.
week.
And so we invite people to join us to read the story and then to join us in Substack comments. We'll see you next week.